Welcome back everyone, Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today we're going to talk about the 15 countries you could live in where there is zero income tax. So, before I get started on, kind of the nuances of what these actual countries are, let's talk a little bit about the subject of the types of taxation because they factor into this. So, what we're going to be focusing on today is personal income tax. Now note that a bunch of these countries actually do have corporate income tax, as we will see, and we're going to do another video. So if you want to subscribe to the channel, subscribe and click that button, you can get more information. We'll have another video on where they have zero corporate income tax, so you can take advantage of both sides of it. But for today it's zero personal income tax, and then there's other sides of it though. For example, as we go through, we're going to talk a lot about how a bunch of these have social securities of some sort, they may have payroll taxes, they may have VAT, they may have property taxes. So just because we say zero personal income tax does not mean that you have zero taxes at all, alright? Okay, so let's get started with, in particular, the only one of these that we're talking about in kind of the Southeast Asia area, and this is Brunei. Okay, so Brunei is the first country that has no income tax. Now, whether you want to live there is a whole other kettle of fish. But they have 5% tax in the form of like a social contribution. So although there's not income tax, let me see here, I've got some notes in this particular case. So they consider it a contribution to the state fund. That's how they define it there. Okay, so 0% income tax, but you do have 5% contribution to the state fund. By the way, I'm going to exclude from this list countries that have a special regime where you can take advantage of it. So this is not like fancy, are there ways around the tax situation, because there are some countries like that. This is countries where it's just straight up zero income tax, okay? What is next? Well, so as I mentioned, that's the only one in Southeast Asia. We go from here to where the majority of them are, which is loosely in the Caribbean. But before we get right to the Caribbean, we are going to talk about Bermuda, okay? So Bermuda is, we often kind of think of it as a Caribbean-esque country. In reality, it's in the Atlantic, but it's kind of in that general part of the world, and they are a zero income tax country. However, they do have payroll tax. Okay, so you need to be aware of that. That's one of the things that they do to compensate. Obviously, there's some way that the government needs to operate, and that happens to be the one for Bermuda. So Bermuda is number 2. From Bermuda, we go down into the actual Caribbean. The Caribbean is full of these guys. So let's see here. Let's start with Cayman Islands. Cayman is actually pure zero tax. Okay, like if you're going to talk about no income tax, no payroll tax, no social security tax, no whatever, you've got Cayman Islands. Okay, very good in that respect from a tax standpoint. So that's number 3. We're counting up to 15. Number 4, we have British Virgin Islands. Okay, so the British Virgin Islands, let's see, do they have anything? I wrote it down here. Yeah, they have payroll tax. So British Virgin Islands does have payroll tax, but obviously if you're in a situation where you don't have any payroll, hey, good deal. So just because you have payroll tax doesn't necessarily mean you have to get taxed, right? That's the next thing. Then we have, so that's number 4. We're on to number 5 is Bahamas. Okay, so if you're not familiar, Bahamas is, yet another set of islands here in the Caribbean, probably some of the better known ones, because they've got fantastic beaches, great white sand. I've been there. It's like one of these, it's probably some of the best sand that I've had. Maybe like Maldives is better. That's like, kind of in that range. Very, very good. So they've got that. Then, what have we got? Bahamas. Okay, so Bahamas, they do have VAT, and they have Social Security. Okay, so zero tax, but Social Security and VAT. So from there we move on to Anguilla. Okay, so we used to form companies quite a bit in Anguilla as an alternative to British Virgin Islands. Anguilla is a genuine zero tax country, much like Cayman Islands. So that's super cool, right? You get very efficient operating there. Again, these are small islands. Like you probably aren't necessarily going to want to live there, but you never know. I have at least a couple clients who have either moved to or for whatever reason ended up living in Bahamas, and there's a bunch of reasons a bunch of people will go down and live in, say, Cayman Islands. There's a big hedge fund industry there, so from the perspective of running funds out, that was quite common. And in Bermuda, it's the insurance industry, so going back there. Okay, so let's see here. We've got Brunei, we've got Bermuda, we've got Cayman Islands, we've got Bahamas, we've got British Virgin Islands, we've got Anguilla, now we're on to Turks and Caicos. Okay, so Turks and Caicos is another one. Tiny, tiny place. Again, I've been there. Great diving. If you want to go and check out a place to go dive, they've got a great wall, beautiful visibility, things like this. Not much going on, super flat. You know, you figure a hurricane could just go right over that bad boy. But no income tax. Now let me see if I wrote down. They have some national insurance. That's what they have there. So again, not really no cost necessarily, but no personal income tax. So where does this bring me? Nevis and St. Kitts. So very famous for trusts, right? Trusts are predominantly in Cook Islands, Nevis and St. Kitts. Well, when we're talking about the big offshore trust jurisdictions, those are kind of like the two that have historically stood out. We don't usually use those so much anymore, but anyway, there's so you can go to Nevis and St. Kitts. Do they have other things? Do I write down? I didn't see any comment on some of these social security. They may have some of that stuff, but zero income tax, so that's very good, right? We're able to get away with, you know, if you're living in there part of the year or something. And they stand out because they have citizenship by investment. So if we compare, for example, to Antigua, Antigua does have tax, but they have citizenship by investment. You know, Grenada has tax, but they've got citizenship by investment, so on. Well, Nevis and St. Kitts, you can have citizenship by investment and not have tax. So very useful. All right, so I think that's 7, but let's recap here. We've got Brunei, we've got Bermuda, we've got Bahamas, we've got British Virgin Islands, we've got Cayman Islands, we've got Antigua, we've got Turks and Caicos, we've got Nevis and St. Kitts. We're up to 8. We have 7 more to go. And I think we're done the Caribbean now. Let's see here. Okay, so we move on from there to the only zero tax country left in Europe, which is Monaco. Okay, so they used to have Andorra used to be zero tax. They got rid of the zero tax thing in Andorra. They have it in Monaco, and they're, you know, arguably able to maintain it because it's so hard for a lot of people to go and live there. It's kind of this restricted thing. So there we go. There are some ways that within Europe you can potentially not pay tax or pay very low tax, etc. But those are other tax regimes. So Monaco is the one place that has genuinely zero personal tax. Now, if that's not zero corporate tax, zero personal tax. Okay. So we've covered off. Where are we? We've looked at Southeast Asia, where we've got Brunei. We've looked at the Caribbean, we've looked at the Pacific, we've looked at now Europe. Now we go into the last part of the world where there's a bunch of zero tax countries. Where would that be? That would be the Middle East, okay, the Middle East. So let's start the Middle East off with the one that's probably best known, which is Dubai, or well, not Dubai, United Arab Emirates, right? United Arab Emirates includes Dubai. Zero personal tax, like I said. They have 5% VAT, but you know, not too bad. It's also easy to get residency there and easy to maintain it. So very, very easy to get going there, and typically you have to visit once every 6 months. So not hard to maintain residency there at all. From there, we go to very hard to get residency. Probably most people are not going to actually move there and live there, and they've got kind of a weird quirk, as well as they just tripled their VAT rate, which is Saudi Arabia. So we've got some clients we've dealt with from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, zero personal income tax. However, they just raised their VAT to 15% from 5%, kind of pay for the whole global pandemic situation, as well as probably the lower price of oil, right? Oil prices went way down, they have to pay for things somehow. Very much a country which is advancing rapidly, opening up, expanding their tourism business. We'll see how that goes now that, you know, again, the world has changed a little bit in that regard. And so they have withholding tax. So this is, I haven't gone into the specifics in each of these countries about, okay, what do you have for social securities, for VAT, for withholding tax? But sometimes what happens is foreigners will be subject to withholding tax even though locals are not, which is kind of an interesting thing. So Saudi Arabia is one of those places. This brings us on to the next one, which is Oman. Okay, so Oman, same difference. They've got not 0% corporate tax, but 0% personal tax. So, you know, for anyone who goes and lives there and who can manage that. Some of these are not necessarily that easy to live in, or they're built more around the idea of foreign workers coming in, right? So that's a whole other thing. which brings us to, the next couple under the same, or actually I guess the remaining three under the where we're at here. So we've got Qatar, right? Qatar does have corporate tax again, but has no personal tax. So that's that. From Qatar, we can move on to Bahrain. Again, no personal tax. And finally, Kuwait has no personal tax. So let's go through the list once more. We started with Brunei in Southeast Asia. Then we went over to the Atlantic, where we have Bermuda. Then we went down into the Caribbean. We have Cayman Islands, Bahamas, British Virgin Islands, Antigua, Turks and Caicos, Nevis and St. Kitts, right? Then we go up to Europe, where we have Monaco. Monaco's, obviously one of the places that people hear lots about, because all the athletes and people go and live there. Super expensive real estate. And they have a bunch of other taxes related things. Interestingly, they don't have tax on their property, but they have tax on their rent. 1% tax on rent or something like that. So we go from there down into the Middle East, where we have United Arab Emirates, we have Saudi Arabia, we have Oman, we have Kuwait, we have Bahrain, and we have Qatar. So those are the 15 countries. There may be one or two. I tried researching and finding whether there's some others, but those are the 15 countries that have an actual 0% personal tax rate. And so we often will see people wanting to achieve that. So hence, the common ones that we hear about are Bahamas is fairly easy to get residency in. Like I said, you can citizenship by investment in Nevis and St. Kitts. Dubai, very common to go to. The other ones are not nearly so common, either because, you maybe might not want to live there, or the programs aren't so good, or whatever. But those are the ones that tend to stand out. There are some others that we'll do some other videos on, where you can achieve 0% tax, but it's not actually a 0% tax regime. So it will be, for example, they don't tax foreign income, or they don't tax income from certain sources, like maybe they have no capital gains tax, etc., etc. Anyway, I hope that helps you. If you found the video interesting, click subscribe, check out our other videos. We're gonna have at least one on zero corporate tax. We have some hidden tax havens. We'll do some videos on that. And then all of that stuff, is for people who are willing to go there. But the truth is, very often you want to achieve it without having to go to some other place. So that's where really the specialty of, like, how do you structure yourself? The structuring is so important. It can make all the difference. The difference between freedom with profitability and no freedom or no profitability is the ability to structure effectively. So anyway, reach out to us. If you have a question or you have a comment, you think I missed something, mention it in the comments, share it with your friends. Looking forward to seeing you guys on the next video. And also check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com. I will see you guys on the next video.